Welcome back. Well, Scott Morrison's hand-picked candidate for the seat of Warringah, Catherine Deves, has come under fire for social media posts on transgender issues. It comes as the PM appears to walk back his support for Senator Claire Chandler's private members bill to protect women and girls and their sport. For their reaction, let's bring in my panel from Melbourne, Director of Policy at the Institute of Public Affairs, Gideon Rosner, and also with me in Melbourne, columnist with the Herald Sun, Caleb Bond. I don't know about you, Caleb, but this is a right issue. It's a good issue. And to me, it's a campaign no-brainer. I think the Prime Minister's got to change his view here and come out strongly and say this is government policy. Yes,
I think you're right. And he has obviously previously expressed his support for this bill. The fact that he would go back on that support is I can't work out why that is. The only reason I can think of is that he's trying to get the issue out of the way. He doesn't want to make an issue of it in the middle of the campaign. But the fact is, it is already an issue. And it's one of those things that I think plays well to Middle Australia. Most people, are on board with, they don't care what anyone wants to do with themselves. If you're transgender, that's fantastic. We don't hold it against you, but we have to worry about sport and the fairness of sport. There's nothing wrong with that.
I tell you what, Gideon, it flushes out Labor because the hard left, Albanese and his faction, they've got nowhere to go on this.
No, they'll find it very, very difficult. But look, I can understand why Scott Morrison has felt the need to distance himself from this Catherine Deves person, incidentally his hand-picked candidate for the seat of, Warringah of all places, because her comments were a little bit on the extreme side. But there are legitimate questions about transgender issues that mainstream Australians do care about. Kids and the treatment of kids in these transgender issues, women's only spaces and women's sport. One thing we know about Scott Morrison is he's not an ideological creature. He would have said this because he would have seen it as a vote-winning issue, and he was right the first time. The fact that he has now backtracked on it and backed away from Senator Claire Chandler's bill on this matter is just vintage Scott Morrison. There has been no issue that he hasn't run a million miles from, because as he said a few years ago, he doesn't care what's woke and what's not woke. Well, don't blame everybody else when you lose control of the agenda.
Yeah, but this is the frustration I have. Howard and Abbott were both prepared to fight for an issue that might not have started popular, and no one thought Abbott could win on a carbon tax repeal. But you dig in, you argue your corner, and if you're persuasive, politics used to be the art of persuasion, you bring people with you. But they drop it and run unless they can get a bipartisan issue. And you can't win a campaign if both sides are fighting on a bipartisan platform with the left. That's the problem. And here we've got the ABC, all these former alumni journalists going out there and saying that, basically the coalition is going to shut down and privatise the ABC. Now, that is not true. Doesn't matter. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good scare campaign. Caleb, that's the problem.
Well, yes, and, they're out campaigning. It sort of reminds me a bit of that Bob Brown convoy we saw at the last federal election, which, of course, went around rural Queensland and other parts of the country telling people that climate change was the worst thing since sliced bread and we should have all their jobs taken away. Now, I can guarantee all these former ABC journos running around saying, the government is not going to fund the ABC enough. They don't want more ABC funding for the regions where the ABC should be doing its work. They want more, inner city lefty nonsense. It's rubbish. It's like Mediscare. It's all made up, but it cuts through with the sort of people that watch the ABC, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, forget privatisation, Gideon. I'd make it pay per view. If you want it, pay for it, but don't hit every taxpayer.
Well, that's the thing. I think they're one and the same, Peter. Look, I have issues with the ABC's editorial positions on a range of things. I did appear on the ABC last week, as you know. But fundamentally, I don't want to shut down the ABC. What the IPA has done extensive research in, and what we have called for, is making the ABC a user-pays service. Why do the viewers of your program have to get a Foxtel subscription and watch advertising, and the viewers of Q&A do not? It is an inherent double standard. Again, every organisation, every media organisation has an editorial bias, but we should not be paying as taxpayers for some views and not others. That is unfair, and in the 21st century, in the year 2022, there is absolutely no case for the government to fund a broadcaster any more than it should fund an airline or a bank or anything else.